he was in the home during those times, but you don't have evidence that James was aware that those activities were occurring. Is that fair? And I'm not trying to trick you.
No, I haven't. I understand your question. If I understand it correctly, you're saying that there's not evidence that he sent a video to his dad saying I was playing with this gun or something to that effect. I never found anything like that. If that's what you're asking.
You've been involved in this case since November 30th of 2021. We heard your testimony about that. You were involved in the search of Mr. Crumbley's home?
Yes.
And that was on November 30th of 2021?
Yes.
And we talked about there were various BB guns found in the home. That's not illegal, correct?
I can't even comment on it. I don't know. I'm sure they are. I have no idea.
No idea. Okay.
I mean, under state law, I have no idea what's legal and not with BB guns.
There were also 2 pistols which were located in the gun safe, which you testified about previously.
Yes, that's correct.
That gun safe with those 2 handguns were located inside of a TV stand or a dresser of some sort?
It was like, I think it was a dresser that had a TV on it, and it was like had like a couple of drawers and a sliding thing in the middle. Yeah.
So it was located inside of that dresser in a cabinet?
Yes.
There was also an empty Sig Sauer gun case, which we've seen, found in James's bedroom.
That's correct.
Along with an empty box of Patriot Defense 9mm ammunition.
Yes.
Also found in James's bedroom.
Yes.
You learned that Mr. Crumbley purchased 3 handguns between June and November of 2021.
Yes.
We went over those purchases today.
Yes.
With each purchase, you know that Mr. Crumbley signed a trigger lock statement.
That's correct.
And you reviewed those as part of your involvement in the case.
I reviewed the documents from every purchase, yes.
Now, you also know that for an FFL dealer to be compliant with federal law, that they also have to provide the ATF youth safety handgun notice.
Correct.
Mr. Crumbley purchasing 3 handguns between June and November, he would have received 3 of those pamphlets.
I believe that's correct, yes.
So we've talked about one, the one that was found in the Sig Sauer case, but you don't know the location of the other 2.
I do not.
And there's no requirement in that pamphlet or anywhere that Mr. Crumbley display that notice anywhere in his home.
No.
Okay. Federally licensed firearms dealers provide the cable locks to each seller, and typically the cable lock comes with the firearm from the manufacturer. Is that fair?
Correct. With new firearms, that's generally the case, yes.
Used firearms, the cable lock might come from somewhere else. Is that accurate?
Yeah, either the store will have you buy one, or sometimes people throw it in for free. It all just depends, yeah.
And I think Ms. Back testified that the cable lock that we have was from Sig Sauer, correct?
Correct.
Cable locks are not necessarily specific to each firearm. So it's not like a key in a lock, right, which is specific to that lock. Cable locks can be used on other firearms.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. They can be used on multiple makes and models of firearms, yes.
So assuming that there isn't an issue with the caliber, a .22 caliber we've determined has a smaller bore, so it's more narrow than a 9mm, which has a wider bore.
Correct.
So a cable lock specific to a 9mm may not fit in a .22 caliber, but a .22 caliber cable lock may fit in a 9mm, if that makes sense.
It depends how you use it. I mean, if you were going to put it through the magazine well and not the actual barrel, there's different recommendations on how to use it. But if you were going to put it through the magazine well and lock it, it would fit both.
So that Sig Sauer cable lock isn't necessarily designed just for that Sig Sauer. A Kel-Tec cable lock could have been used on a Sig Sauer, correct?
Kel-Tec, to my knowledge, does not make cable locks. They provide trigger locks, but I get your point. Yes,
yes.
A different model could work just as well.
Okay. There are also universal cable locks, which we've kind of talked about, which could work on any caliber handgun.
Correct. Semi-automatic handgun, yes.
Semi-automatic, thank you. Again, Mr. Crumbley, we know, received 3 either cable locks or trigger locks in connection with the purchases of the handguns.
Correct. Based on the documentation we have, yes.
Right. You found 1 cable lock in the home.
That's correct.
The keys were still in the lock.
Yes.
You did not find the other 2.
No.
Or their keys.
Not to my knowledge, no.
You don't know where those other 2 cable locks are.
I believe there would have been a trigger lock with the Kel-Tec, but to your point, yes.
Okay. You don't know whether Mr. Crumbley had a cable lock on the SIG or not at the time that it was taken by his son. Based on your
Taken by
investigation.
his son. I would, and based on statements made that we've heard in court and other things like that, I've never heard mention of a cable lock. I've always heard hidden.
Okay. You don't know though. Is that fair based on your investigation?
I know that one wasn't recovered at the school or in the house. So is it a certainty? No, I think it's highly improbable.
You said that one was recovered at the school?
I said one was not recovered at the school.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You know, so it would, yeah. I found no evidence that a cable lock was ever installed in that firearm.
The prosecutor was asking you about the difference between a .22 caliber round and a 9mm round, and there was something about the size of it, the bigger the round, the bigger the hole, things like that.
I don't know if I said that today, but I know it. Yes.
Okay. There's no evidence that you've learned to show that James bought a gun because he wanted more damage. I think that's what you said, more damage.
More damage. Yeah, I don't think I found any evidence that James decided to purchase that firearm. If my understanding is right, based on things that the only person ever researched the purchase of the firearm was the shooter.
We also heard Ms. Back testify that and confirm that when Mr. Crumbley went and purchased the 9mm Sig Sauer, that he had made indications that he had been looking at it for a few days. Do you remember that testimony?
Yeah, I remember it was either a few days or quite some time. I'm not sure the phrasing, but I remember hearing that testimony, yes.
And we know that James Crumbley also has fired a 9mm prior to November 26th of 2021. I believe it was September or October of that year.
Yes, I recall he had at least fired it then and then maybe in July that year too.
We talked about Exhibit 167, which was the small knew the combination of that safe?
I do not.
Specifically, you have no knowledge if his son knew the combination of that safe.
I do not know if he knew the combination was 000, no.
You don't know if James was aware if his son had the combination to that safe. Is that fair?
I have found no evidence that he provided the combination or his son knew the combination, but based on the fact that we recovered the firearms in the home in the safe and that we have videos of, at least there's the one video on, was it August 19th and August 20th, the two videos of Mr. Crumbley's son playing with the Kel-Tec. There's also a video, I forget the date, of the shooter playing with a Derringer inside the house at one point. So if they were in the safe, I don't know if his father was there or not. I can't answer that question for certain whether his son knew the code to that safe.
Okay. And you talked about August of 21. That was obviously before November 30th of 2021 when you recovered that safe from the cabinet.
Correct.
You testified with the prosecution that you were, I believe you used the word shocked to find the ATF youth handgun pamphlet in the Sig Sauer gun case, right?
Yes.
Now, we just talked about the fact that there were at least, we believe at least, two other pamphlets that were provided to Mr. Crumbley.
Correct.
Because we know that because there were two other firearms in the home, and
Sure.
you have no reason to believe that those were not sold in compliance with federal law.
Correct.
You don't know when or how often Mr. Crumbley reviewed those pamphlets with his son
I do not.
prior to November of 2021?
No.
In fact, it would be an assumption that because it was in the Sig Sauer case, that must mean that Mr. Crumbley wasn't reviewing those rules or following the rules with his son. Is that fair?
Can you either rephrase or repeat the question?
Yes. It would be an assumption about whether or not Mr. Crumbley reviewed those pamphlets with his son just because it was found in the Sig Sauer case.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's why I said I was shocked that it was just kind of discarded to the back. Yes.
And we also established that there was no requirement that he post that pamphlet anywhere in his home.
Correct.
The prosecutor asked you about registering handguns. You don't know whether James mailed the pistol sales records, correct?
You mean mailing them in to? If they were mailed in process, they would have shown up in the registry. I've actually ran it between or either right before the first trial or this trial, and it still wasn't in there. So it'd be odd if all three got lost in the mail.